Hi everyone, welcome back to another devlog. This time we're already on episode 7. Can you believe that? 7 devlogs and still no working game. Well, we are still working on the game, however, so stick around and see what we've been up to this past month. So the main topics we want to cover this devlog is optimizations, as we discussed last devlog, as well as the harbor. And then we also added Steam support and did a lot of behind the scenes work again that we'll explain a bit more in depth. And then of course we'll have our lightning round and we'll also explain a bit more what we're planning for next month. So stick around. So the first thing we want to talk about is optimizations. We covered this last devlog as well, and Thomas said he was going to have a lot of fun with it. So Thomas, we're 1 month later now. Tell me, did you have a lot of fun with it and what exactly changed?
I can now see my therapist more often, so that's pretty nice. It was a lot of fun. I highly recommend everyone to do it. It's very fun indeed. But all jokes aside, we did get some amazing results. As we said, we were going to do some optimizations, and the main thing we did this last month was optimizing our buildings and roads. We already did a lot of optimization last devlog. If you haven't seen that one already, go ahead and check it out. It's pretty informative. The way we achieved this time around is we had a lot of models which made up one building. We just combined them all, so well, it's only one model we have to render. And on top of that, we also GPU instanced it, which is basically a very fancy term to say it's faster now. The core that we achieved this time is that actually we have around 4 times the performance than when we booted the game like 2 months ago. To give you some rough numbers, we count by batches, and the game started at over 2,000 batches, which is a lot for doing nothing. And now we are at around 500-600, I think, with already a much, well, more detailed and feature-rich world, to say the least. So yeah, that's a pretty big improvement, and we are quite happy with that. We even, made it run on Steam Deck quite smoothly, which is nice.
The next feature we talked about last devlog as well, and that we've been working on, is the harbor. So we're not fully done with it yet, however we already have some cool stuff to show you, which you'll probably see some b-roll appear for now. So if you're not sure anymore what we were talking about with harbor, it's basically our extended marketplace where you can trade with other factions in our virtual game world. And you also get more advanced events and requests. For example, if there's wars in different factions, then you can capitalize upon that by crafting weapons for them. Part of that was a mix of both models, because we didn't really have a lot of harbor models yet. We had something, but now we also have our ships, we have our abandoned harbor, because the harbor is not something you have unlocked on day one. It's instead something that you need to work up to be able to restore and unlock that part of the game as part of the, natural progression of what do you do in your game. We also worked on some of the shipping mechanics. However, the full dynamic buying and selling and supply and demand logic will only be coming in probably the next month, not even next month, the month after that. But we already got some of the mechanics working there to make the harbor work functionally in its basic form. Then one other thing we did that we didn't plan upon immediately in our last devlog, but that has actually been quite nice, is we have started working with Steamworks and implementing Steamworks in our game. Thomas was the guy responsible for that, but I think there are some cool things that have been implemented now, so maybe he can explain a bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So we already had our Steamworks set up for quite a while. That's because you can wishlist our game on Steam. I mean, probably somewhere down there, or a card. I don't know how YouTube works. Marnix will figure that one out. So yeah, we added basically what I call Steam support, which is the basic things like cloud saves are fully working, so you can easily travel between, change between devices and take your save with you. We added achievements, of course. The list is still quite small. We're still working on expanding it, but there are already quite a bunch that are available right now. Basic things like when you open the Steam overlay, the game gets paused, things like that. And the coolest feature of them all, in my opinion, is of course our Steam Workshop integration. For those who don't know yet, Forge Industry aims to be fully moddable. Moddable items, buildings, everything basically, as much as we can provide. And the cool thing here is we can do everything from within the game. So from our main menu, you can actually go to add-ons and easily search for, well, mods you want to install and install them by just a few clicks, which is great. You can also even upload from our application, so you can easily share your creations with the world, because we believe, well, it adds a lot to a gaming experience when there is a community supporting it. So while there is still work to do, both on our implementation for the Steam Workshop, as for the modding support, which is both working but in a basic form basically, I think it's very promising where the result is going, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it as well.
So yeah, modding is a core part of our ideology that, especially in a game like ours where there's no real ending, you can keep playing it infinitely, modding truly adds a lot of value. Instead of in narrative games, it's maybe not as much, but especially for our game, we truly want to put a lot of effort into how we can mod everything as much as possible. Then one last thing that we can't show you that much about because it's honestly really boring in my opinion, and probably in Thomas's opinion as well, and the people who worked on it. We refactored things. We just, basically what that means is there were some problems with our own code, how we were doing things, for example, regarding our mouse inputs. We were struggling a bit there since we wanted to change some things there, as well as our items, and we were hitting some roadblocks with, for example, mechanics we wanted to implement, but our current implementation of items, for example, didn't really support what we wanted. That has been resolved now, mostly by William and Jamie, who are currently both on medical leave because of the depression they have. So that's why they're not here today. But yeah, it's not that interesting. So let's move on from that, I would say, to some more fun stuff again. As you all know, we always have our favorite, the lightning round. The first thing we implemented, because it was quite bad, is we now have automatic route names. So before, if you were going to make a route between two buildings, it would always be called Route 1 or Route 2. That sucked because you didn't know what kind of thing that your route was going to. Now we automatically have it changed so that the building name is included. So we now have, instead of Route 1, it would be Woodsaw to Marketplace or Marketplace to Woodsaw, for example, or you can even chain them. What we're going to be doing next sprint as well is we're also going to make sure you can rename the buildings so that those route names will reflect that change. As a reminder, we could already change the route names before, but sometimes you're just too lazy to do that and you just want the route. So
another thing we added is, well, now when you're placing a building or a road, you automatically see a grid layout, which makes it a lot easier to see, well, the bounding boxes of buildings and so on. Of course, as with almost everything in our game, we want it to be configurable. If you always want to see the grid, you never want to see the grid. Only when you are placing buildings, you can configure those in the options.
And then I also worked on a bunch of new buildings. The main ones are the lumber yard. The point of that one is to be a wood alternative to the mine. So it's a pretty expensive building. It takes up a lot of space, but in return, you can automatically generate wood instead of having to rely on the marketplace. And then another building that we added very recently, just like 2 days ago, is the recycling station. So we wanted to see that, okay, let's say you have some leftover resources that you didn't really need and you don't want to sell them, or if you sell them, it would be too much of a loss. Thanks to our dwarven friends, we now have a recycling station where you can pump in your items and then recycle them into something that's more valuable again. So that's what we've been up to last sprint. Now, what are we going to be doing next month? Well, we're going to be focusing on a few main mechanics still. I think first of all, we're going to finish the harbor. That's an important one. We didn't fully get it done, but we should be pretty much done with this one. And then we'll also start on one of our last big mechanics still, and that is the research system. So right now you can unlock everything in our game. You can just click on it, buy it immediately. Of course, then the game doesn't really have a long playtime because, well, you can buy everything. Instead, we want you to research materials, we want you to research certain buildings, and for that we're going to be making up the logic for that now.
Another thing we want to do is more quality of life. We already did a bunch of stuff like the route names Marnix mentioned, the grid and so on, but we still have a lot of things we want to improve for our quality of life, to make building worlds in an easy and, well, efficient way, even, well, more user-friendly, of course.
And it wouldn't be a devlog if I didn't ruin Thomas his hopes and dreams. So what he'll also be working on is redoing our world gen, or doing a big overhaul because currently our worlds may still be a bit small, and we also have some problems with, for example, how the harbor fits into the whole world, because right now it only works in our one seat. But we want to make it so that we can use terraforming more effectively, so you can truly use random worlds everywhere.
This is the first I heard about it.
So yeah, now you know what we've been up to. Let us know your comments. We probably shared some gameplay as well, if you find it cool or whatever. As we said before, be sure to wishlist the game if you haven't yet. You can also follow along the development if you want some more quick updates by either following our Discord server, link below, or following us on Twitter. If you're new,
If that's still alive.
if that's still alive, yeah, indeed. If you're new here, hi, welcome. As you can see, we're documenting the process of making our own game. If that sounds like something that's interesting to you, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button, as it really helps us a lot, and in return, you get these cool updates. So it's really a win-win. Apart from that, I don't have anything left to say, so we're going to go back to the work, and you can go back and do whatever you want. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.